There's such a human aspect to going to work. It's a big part of your life. It's so easy to say, I go to work so I can make money and I can take care of my kids or I can buy the things I want. But that's not what shows up. What shows up is, am I valued?
Welcome to the Level Design Podcast, a podcast for architects and engineers who want to thrive in this industry by creating more freedom, fulfillment, and financial security. Join us in uncovering how to restore value and honor to the unique people who choose to be designers and caretakers of our built world, and why it's essential to the future of our society, our industry, and our planet.
So first off, Scott, how's it going? How's the morning?
Man, I am tired this morning. I had a long day in the field. Been a lot of mentoring going on. So
Really?
super exhausted. But
Isn't it interesting? Like a lot of people, unless you've done leadership, you don't really understand that you have to burden basically the entirety of every step of mentorship in that regard, like training and teaching. They're not there yet where they know exactly everything to ask, but you have to be aware to make it the most of both your time.
yeah.
And so you just, at the end of the day, you got nothing left and they're feeling energized and
Yeah.
great and they want to take on the world and you want to go to sleep for 4 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's energy out. Yep.
Can you let us into what kind of mentorship is happening? Like any examples or just high level? Like what is the gaps that you're filling with that mentorship?
Well, for the reasons that, a number of different reasons, but essentially what seems to be happening is somewhere in the realm of the great baby boomer generation, that generation of knowledge and really robust, really great. They were mentored well. They were exposed a lot. There was a lot of greatness in that generation, a lot of interest in the built world, building America, engineering, architecture. They were on their tail end of their careers, and it was a lot of them. And they were kind of reaching that 50s, 60s, and then that 08, 09 economic downturn happened. Right at the same time, they were at the end of their careers. And so basically the loss of work tailored with the end of their careers, a lot of them called it and quit and retired or whatever. And what happened was there was also this huge gap, and that knowledge gap of those people, when they left, they actually didn't plan on leaving. But the economy kind of forced it, forced the decision. And what I'm seeing is there's a decade, at least about a decade, of no knowledge transfer to the youth. And this weird scenario happened, I think, and this is my opinion of the industry, was, wow, that was a disruption in mentoring.
Mm-hmm.
And there was not a lot of work happening, and the youth didn't get the mentoring. And so now I've got 10, 12, 15-year designers that are entering the level model, and there's just this huge knowledge gap of how to design or how to build. And it's extraordinary gap, actually. It's really interesting.
I think it's so interesting that we're still talking about the 2008, 2009 economic, disruption, because I think that's when a lot of industry changed. I think that's when really big corporations understood how they could work together in different ways. And that's where we started losing. You talk about mentorship. That's when we started exiting from leadership development being a worthwhile cost too, and that just has bled through everything. We still haven't gotten away from it. We've had a lot of other events since then, but we haven't gotten away. And that's the interesting thing about entrepreneurship to me is like, that's how you start to make a change. Right. You start to create a new path, an avenue that's away from whatever they're constructing.
Well, and then Andrew, map on COVID.
Right.
Map on COVID when all of these larger organizations that were starting to get larger, and they were starting to work on these, acquisitions of smaller companies and business efficiencies that said, you know what, you got to come to work and sit at your desk in your cubicle. That's our plan. And then there's this gap of knowledge, and then map on, oh, COVID, you all got to go home. And corporations were figuring out ways how to actually execute work. But more importantly, the workers were like, wait a minute, I like working from home. I like this lifestyle, this balanced life thing. And then map that on top of everything. Pretty disruptive.
Yeah, it's like, how do you go back, right? It's an impossible feat.
And all of these things have such delayed effects that we probably haven't even seen a lot of them yet.
Well, what you're seeing now is that use of that as, again, the workforce found themselves as part of the margin. And that didn't used to be it. You were an asset, but now you're in the margin. And so we can use that drive you have internally to work from home and have this new sense of freedom and this new love for your profession. But is it being weaponized? How are they using it? And what's causing this, disruption to the way people think about work?
Yeah. So in the engineering and architecture community, this trend of monopolization, which a lot of businesses are doing, it's not just limited here, but this, the larger firms. So those baby boomers are still, they have their own companies and their own communities. We talk about this a lot. That used to be how things were done. And so these baby boomers, these engineers, architects, that created their firms are like, what's the exit plan? They really didn't have an exit plan. How do I do this? And then the larger monopolies are going, these are tons of opportunities by market. So they're buying these small, medium firms, right? And there's even brokers that call me constantly. They're trying now, it's coercive. It's like, somebody leading us engineering or architectural company in the communities, they're trying to make it. And then you get these constant, we'll buy you. And they're in their 60s and 70s. They're like, Christ, why not? Right. So
yeah, anyone would.
Mm-hmm.
But that's really what brings you back to like that 2008, bringing to COVID. 2008 is when everybody, the big, larger organizations with a lot of the power inside of these markets, they got addicted to that year-over-year growth. That's how they proved their abilities within each other. And so when COVID proved that they could do it regardless of how you felt about sitting in that cubicle, then they really go, oh, hold on a second. Everybody's scared to leave. So we don't have anything to lose.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to actually revolt. They will talk about it. They'll watch things online. But when it comes to rubber meets the road, it's really scary. And any entrepreneur will tell you it's really scary.
And not easy.
Not easy. Yeah. And that bliss shouldn't be easy. Like everything else you worked for,
I got to be honest with you. Entrepreneurism 30 years ago was a lot easier thing to look at. Now it's super complicated with how do you market yourself solo with this Google and these other entities that require it seems to me, tell me if I'm wrong, it's designed for just the big things. You don't get seen if you're not big.
Yeah, if you're not like in the top 5%, it's hard to be seen because people only look at the top 5%.
Isn't it odd? So that you're in your community and you go, I need a designer, engineer, architect near me. And all you get is these big companies. You don't find that entrepreneur in your community.
And even if you do, it could be masked as a large organization.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I think that's the goal. If they're going to take advantage of how hard it is, you hit the nail on the head. If it's hard to be an entrepreneur, then you're going to be forced to participate in the rat race. The rat race used to be a lot of fun. When I get together with my friends, we talk about it all the time. Like it used to be a blast. You accomplished a lot. You were challenged. You were mentored. They cared about growing you for the sake of the company. But that's not the game they're in anymore, right? And so
the number one reasons our engineers and architects are quitting their firms are bad boss, toxic culture, business culture, lack of purpose. What is the purpose of this place I'm working for?
Yeah, it bleeds into society too. It's not stuck there.
And balanced life. We haven't even got to pay yet. These are the top reasons. They're like these entities of these larger and larger entities that are no longer these small, delightful firms within these communities. There's no longer that. It's a grind and a bad culture that only thinks about making a buck. And they're genius people. And they're like, I'll go be genius in some other career. We're losing over 60% of our U.S. graduating engineers. They're leaving this engineering industry that's thriving, by the way. They're leaving it. 60% are leaving engineering and architecture because of these reasons within 5 years. We are at a net loss of engineers and architects in this community every year.
It's like you said, there's such a human aspect to going to work. It's a big part of your life. And so it makes it, we wouldn't think so because it's so easy to say, I go to work so I can make money and I can take care of my kids or I can buy the things I want. But that's not what shows up. Like you said, what shows up is, am I valued? And through leadership, I'm sure you've learned that, I've learned that, is if you actually connect to the individual and you get to know what they value and you can coach them on that level, it's invaluable. It's everything to everybody, and that's where the lack of leadership really strikes me in these environments because it's too expensive. Those leaders are setting the bar for our communities, same as those firms that used to work inside of our communities and interacting. That's setting the rules.
Well, let me ask you a question. No matter how wonderful a person is or how great of a leader or how their intentions are great, being young or old, that you take that great person and you put them in a structure, a business structure that's toxic and make a buck. I think the structures are killing us.
100%.
Because our engineering and architectural firms used to be owned by engineers and architects that had these wonderful missions and purposes. And it's no longer. It's just make a buck. That the firms have turned into businesses run by business people. And that engineering and architectural passion has been stripped.
Yeah, it's like we often blur the lines between structure and routine. Everybody thrives on routine. But they don't need rigidity where they have no space to have free thought, creativity, to come up with new ways that they can interact with different parts of their company. That's what we're taking away from these people. That's why you don't want to sit in traffic even, it bleeds.
Yeah, well said. Well said.
So before we get too deep, I did just want to bring in, we have Andrew here who's a unique perspective. And I want to Andrew, could you share a little context, like how, the high level, how you got here and why we're even having this conversation?
Well, it's a wild ride, right? Like I could even share in there, I'll make sure to share how I thought I knew it all and entrepreneurship would be easy because I was at a high level in corporate America, right? Why would this be hard? But I spent a long career in one of the most fluid, moving environments, which is healthcare, and all the way from clinical into an executive roles. And through that, connected my leadership style to people. No matter what I did, managing the business, if I was managing the people in a really personal human way, we were doing well. We were always thriving. And I stayed and remained true to that as long as I could. And this was during COVID. You start seeing that we are after the buck in the worst space possible. And I couldn't get on board with that completely. The fight was over, they're powerful. And so I said, I got to go find change and I got to enact change somewhere else and help people that actually have meaning behind what they're doing, which is a crazy thing to say when you're coming from healthcare, but I don't think it's a secret to anybody. So that all being said, I put a t-shirt on instead of a suit and I was like, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm going to be able to knock this out. And I did what everybody did. I thought I knew how to figure the numbers out. I knew exactly where I fit, who I needed to talk to. Turns out none of that's true. The only thing you need to do is apply your experience wherever you find opportunity and go with an open mind. And that's one of the hardest things you have to learn how to do when you're coming from that structure. For all the reasons we just said, right? You're not allowed to have an open mind there. So you literally, my real estate attorney who helped me set up my business gave me the best advice. We were having lunch and he goes, I know you want to do this right now, but don't close your mind to any of the opportunities that come to you or people you meet. And I had no idea what that meant that day. I have a profound understanding of what that means now. So that was 4 years ago. I left corporate America. So
Entrepreneurism, though, when you step into it, if you map that, the assets of an entrepreneur and that type of person that thrives in that onto an engineering and architectural community, which is a whole type of people, so these people, which is my people, are really, I think we've kind of been programmed from an early age that if you're a STEM student, wow, you have the genius to go on to, engineering and architecture, and you kind of get on this path, and then you kind of get into this technical training and all this stuff. So you're technically trained, but you're not human trained. There's almost no human training in engineering and architecture at all. So you're like, okay, I'm this brilliant technical person, and plug me in, and we're programmed to get plugged into systems, firms or systems that, accomplish these kind of works and go out in the marketplace and find clients, I'm going to have a wonderful life. All I got to do is plug in.
Right.
My life's going to be, I was told my life's going to be wonderful if I just accomplish this technical ability, and I just got to go plug in. And it's not working. It's not working. Guess what? Where's my alternative? If I unplug from that, what I've been programmed to do, if I unplug from that, what do I do? Where do I do it? Where do I take my technical knowledge? And if I don't like it here, then where?
I mean, even I feel what you just said, and I'm not an engineer or a designer. I'm an operations person with a business background. I felt that. I said, I've got all these skills, but I don't know where they apply. And that's where, that's where that open-mindedness comes from. You have to just go, you know what? I'm taking the jump, and it's going to be scary. And the more I do, the better I'm going to get at it. And one of those things that glared at me was, whether it's a product, whether it's a client, whether it's your personal relationships, even, you find this empathy through that path. And so you're able to connect any of those things to your own process, things you've endured. And that just makes such more profound, help. And it's just, that's why I think entrepreneurs are a solid network. To me, I didn't understand them. I was like, what are you all are something I can't wrap my head around. You talk about work all the time, but you're also smoking cigars, but you're also having fun and laughing at the same time. To me, those are different things. I go to work so I can go have fun in this small amount of time I have in between. And it turns out that's the revolt. You all have left this system and said, we're going to showcase that we can keep each other thriving and alive and become better human beings while we do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's just so remarkable. It's made me addicted. I'd live in my car before I went back,
Right.
So.
Well, you've been talking to hundreds of engineers in the last couple of years, hundreds and hundreds of engineers about, them, especially with the level offering is entrepreneurship and a collaborative, that has those systems. So it's not so scary. Basically we do the business stuff for them and the marketing stuff for them. But so, we make that entrepreneur jump more logical, I say, for the logical mind. This level idea is actually more logical for them to go into entrepreneurship. But what are they telling you? What are you hearing from the engineers that are like, oh, doesn't feel good for me anymore? What are you hearing from them?
Right. It's funny you say that. I'd comment on that real quick. I always say that about myself. I'm like, I wish there was a level for people like me wanting to start a business because you're right. It's like, when you become an entrepreneur, you're jumping off the top of a building and that can hurt as you fall. But when you're joining level, it's like you might bruise a heel or something, but it's not going to be bad. You're going to have somebody to patch it up for you and keep you going.
Looking for a new opportunity? Interested in being part of an expanding network of independent engineers and architects who are thinking differently? Level Design Partners is on a mission to create prosperity for design professionals, the industry, and the world, using innovative business systems and a culture of collaboration. We believe that traditional education and firm structures want you to be a cog in their machine, depriving you of key skills needed to thrive, thus commoditizing an entire industry in the process. Gain access to skills, tools, and systems by partnering with Level Design Partners. Learn more at leveldesignpartners.com.
What I hear from them, though, uniquely is you hit it really strongly and profoundly, even the ones that have learned to be charismatic, the client facing scares them to death. They don't know what to do in that setting. And so they pause and a lot of times retreat. And that's where I start to see who's ready. Because we never close the door. I'm like, hey, this is something to think about. And let's talk again in a couple months. But the ones that are ready are the ones that go, I'm aware of that gap. Tell me how to fix it. But I would say, to answer your question directly, that client facing, how to feel comfortable with valuing yourself. They know they create so much value, but when it becomes monetary for them, it's scary for them, And
what is their tolerance in their existing systems? Are they, what are they like? There is no way I'm going to continue. There's like, I'm done. I'm moving on to something else. I'm like, well, I'm a little upset, but what is their emotion in these existing scenarios of a bad boss, toxic culture, unbalanced life? What is their emotion in that space? Because the loss numbers to me are staggering. People leaving engineering when it's a thriving business. It's not going away. It's growing. Why in God's sake are you leaving? And it's just so curious to me. Of course, that's why we start Level. But
right. That's a great question. So number one, mentorship. I hear this all the time is where I'm at. I really want to grow my technical skills and I'm not able to grow my technical skills. I want to be a really good engineer. And they're being compartmentalized, I feel. Like that's what I'm guessing is every piece of an engineer has been processed down into a part of the process. And so that's a huge one. The second one is the amount they work. They are emotionally drained and they want a little bit of time to themselves. And they want to be able to think freely or take that side job that's a passion project of something they want to engineer or design. Because a lot of them want to do extracurricular work, but they don't have the space to do it, which also leads back to them growing, right? As people, as engineers, as architects. And so those are the two biggest, that emotionally why they go, yes, I want to talk to this interesting level that I have no idea what they do, but it sounds like it's different and I want to know more.
It seems for me, and just touching base with you because you're touching base with everybody on it. But as our entities and our structures of business and engineering get bigger and more efficient, and then, I often say they're leveraging overseas talent too, which is driving our value down, but it's really concerning for me in America. But those larger systems actually require that the talent pool, the human talent genius pool, actually is a management tool and efficiencies. Those individuals have to get really efficient with one task.
Yes.
And that's a structural requirement. You can't have a large company with 50,000 engineers and then having this creativity and flexible decision making, because that's a nightmare for a large organization.
That was my operations brain assuming, and you're confirming it, right? Is that they looked at it from the large scale and go, this is how we need to use our workers.
This is how we need to use our workers. And it's just not going to change because it can't change that approach. And then you look at that engineer and architect plugging in and you look at their view of things, they're going, wow, this is super unsatisfying. This is actually horrible.
Yeah, and never seeing your work. I hear that as well. It's not a top one, but I hear it a ton. It's like I've designed all these things and I've never seen them. I'm over here placing one of the same over and over again.
Yeah, it's almost criminal for these genius people. But the mentoring, I hear that. Level's core is mentoring and mentoring each other and collaborating. It's actually the core of the company. And you should see the smiles just because they're learning. And I actually have to kind of wink at when I'm mentoring in front of a client. I almost have to tell them, quit smiling so big because it looks funny from the client's standpoint. And I'm like, why are you smiling? I actually interrupt the client meeting and I'll go, what's happening over there, Rick? He goes, I'm learning so much. And it's like, okay, well, keep it inside at least till after the client meeting. It's because they're
Uh,
just having so
you
much
just
fun.
gave me this nostalgic thought because it's so awesome in life, especially when it's your work and your passion. Like you said, something you spent so long schooling for that you get to have fun with it. The thought that you reminded me of is when I was in club soccer as a kid. My coach used to yell at me for smiling on the field all the time. Huge smile on my face the whole time I'm playing this 90 minutes of soccer. He's like, could you look a little meaner? Like, it's like, no, this is
That's
too
awesome.
fun. This is too fun. And yeah, I just think there's such a profound thing. I always connect it to physicians because it's not only where I'm from, but you all are experts. You went to school. You're scientific. You are the expert. You don't need a suit telling you what to do. But in healthcare, because we wanted to see more dollars, what did we do? We started making it harder and harder for a physician to hang their own shingle, own their own business, and survive on their own so that we can convert them to employees and tell them where they direct care. And that's what firms are doing to you all. They go, this is how you work now, but we pay you a great salary, right? So just do it.
And I got to be honest, this is, larger firms in these situations are great machines to accomplish big projects. And there's a lot of people happy in these systems. But for those that's just not how they want to be or how they want to work, what's the alternative? I think that's what we're talking about. I don't want to necessarily demonize these things, but there's definitely that doesn't work for a lot of folks. Apparently 60% of the engineers don't like it.
Yeah, it's a misfit for a certain percentage of them. It's not sustainable. They're not living. They're not like freely thinking and they probably have so much creativity in them and stuff that they want to do and impact they want to make and all this passion and energy, and it's just sitting dormant. So I think it requires a lot of, from what I've seen, like unprogramming, because it's such a simple thing. Like we keep throwing the E word, entrepreneurship, out there. And I almost want to like break that down because that word is so overused and means so many different things. And it can be really intimidating. Like, oh, an entrepreneur, you have to do everything yourself. You're out on your own. You're alone. It's all on you. So yeah, this conversation kind of has me thinking about that. Like, why is it so, I'll just say like scary, or, the unknown of going off on your own, whatever that looks like. Why is that so scary for people to make that?
Yeah, that's super interesting. That's actually, I forget that. I mean, we deliberately design Level as a collaborative with a lot of support. You're not really just an entrepreneur. You're actually joining a lot of support. So it's really not entrepreneurism in a way. Yeah, that's a good point.
It requires the same level of, a lot of similar thinking. Like you do have to have that energy to want to go, create opportunity, convert. Like you're not just sitting there doing the work. You're actually, you have a lot more room to bring ideas to the collaborative, to grow your own sort of business inside of the collaborative. So it requires
it doesn't have a ceiling.
That's one of the bigger points. Yeah, for sure.
You don't have to sit there in front of your manager and like do your dog and pony show with your annual review, which is hilarious to me because the corporation's goal is money. So they want to pay you less. So your supervisors are like, well, I got to beat this human down because they're not, or they're going to want a lot of money. So there's that. And then this person's like, I want unlimited promotions and I'm doing great and working hard and I want to be CEO and I want the ladder. And and this supervisor's like, I got to beat this guy down, this girl down, so they don't do that because I don't. So, but yeah, entrepreneurism is nobody holding you back. Nobody holding you back.
But to your point, Miles, it's, if you want to put it into one word, it's, are you able to step into the uncomfortable with an open mind? Because you're right, entrepreneurship has a million different meanings behind it and it's unique to everyone. But what Level offers is this independence from the current system. For you, if you are a more creative thinker, if you want to expand your knowledge, if you want to work with others, but you don't want to do entrepreneurship alone where you are on an immediate island and you want some individuals on your side when you step into that uncomfortable. That's what exists here.
Yeah.
But no, we don't have to demonize the corporations. I mean, they are what they are,
Right.
but they've made it hard for the people that don't fit. I was one of them. I never fit in corporate America. What I loved was the game. I loved finding challenges with people that were way above my pay grade and getting into those rooms and downloading their brains and being able to contribute. It was like my athletic side. I was like, I just want to be in the game, start to contribute and learn as much as I can. And that was the sad thing that I saw slipping away. It was like everybody's so pressed for their time that they can't look up. And so nobody's connecting anymore. There is no water cooler. I've got to hurry up and go to the bathroom so I don't have a bad performance review, like Scott said, It's like, that's today.
Well, what's the fear then? Why are we still programmed to the point where being reliant on myself for my success scares the crap out of me?
Can we boil it down? I really think if you boil it all down, it's to money or what money is attached to. Like the worst case scenario is why it's because they want to do it because they would have more room, more creativity, no ceiling, get to do it how they want, learn, mentorship, grow, all of the things we're talking about are like a no-brainer. But worst case scenario, I don't make any money. That is the fear, I think. It's all boiled down to money. And when they're in a firm,
or failure. What about personal failure? Is there a fear about personally failing?
Yeah.
It's confronting.
I think those two.
The money one, I went through it, right? I went from getting everything, RSUs, good salaries, nice expenses. And I thought, and I see this a lot when you asked me earlier about what I see, when I challenge these engineers on how they're thinking about money, because they'll bring it up like this is a fear. They calculate just like I found myself calculating when I first started. It's like I'm calculating in corporate world and how we looked at paychecks and items or what something pays out in revenue. That's not how entrepreneurship works. You actually have to forget all of that and understand that money is completely different when you work for yourself. How it goes in, how it goes out, what hits expense lines, it changes. So you have to live it in order to evolve your brain. And for me, that's where that empathy comes in. If I'm not going to be daring like that, how can I tell somebody else to be daring like that with a business they really care about? I can't. I have to challenge myself to go, you have to change your relationship with money and understand that betting on yourself. And I'm going to steal words from Scott's first 2 podcasts he ever did, because it's so profound. What is a safer bet than betting on yourself? There is no safer bet. But it doesn't feel that way when you're coming from the other world. You're like, holy crap, I don't even know how to look for a healthcare plan. Well, it turns out if you get uncomfortable and you start looking, it's not that bad. They exist. I got to buy a laptop. Okay, let's figure that out. You just go step by step.
Yeah. And, wow. Because, we've designed this and to do one thing, cause thriving in American designers. And that's pure, right? For public benefit. That's a pure mission. And then on the other side of that, once somebody gets their wheels, we're seeing common 2 and 3 times their revenue than they made at a firm situation. And wow, it's kind of, if you're quitting because of balanced life, what happens when you make 2 or 3 times more and you're like, I don't think I want to work this week. I think I want to, or it's 2:00 and my kids are going to a game and you don't even have to ask anybody. What's that worth?
100%. That goes with all the value, the mentorship. What if I'll challenge you. What if you're making less? What if you're making 20 grand less, but you're getting everything was the reason you weren't connected?
I talk to the men and women all the time about the thing about this collaborative is what you learn today, nobody can take from you. This is your forever knowledge for you to make, diversify and make money in the future. Today and tomorrow and the next day, that learning, no company can take it away from you at level. And it's like, It's gold. It's gold for the rest of your career. Every day. Yeah.
It's empowering. You're taking your power back, basically. I mean, to sum it all up, it's
Well, you are. It's like Scott said. It's like, have you thought about the last time? I ask anybody this because I think about it as a person that is independent from that life at this point. When you don't feel well and you just want to rest and recover so that you can be your best self later, and you don't have to ask anybody if you can have time to rest and be yourself. That when you're at your worst and you can just make that decision for you, wherever that is, that's an amazing freedom,
Can I tell a story? A level story?
please.
Oh my God. So I am still traditionally thinking because, I own businesses and, it still shows up, even with this model that we've created is this whole freedom thing. So, I've got this thing in my head about this project problem and the collaborative's working on it, but it's specifically one leader on this project. And I'm going through the whole weekend, because I'm on the team as a senior person and my brain's just playing engineer, business owner. I'm going through this weekend. Monday, we got to hit it hard and we got to resolve this thing. So I'm in that space, right? And the bell rings, it's 8:00. I dial this other engineering leader and I'm like, hey, blah, 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 blah. And we got to do it by blah, 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 blah. And we got to hit this, we got to resolve this. And he goes, hey, Scott, I get it, man. But hey, I got 4 other engineers and we're fishing this morning. Can we call you tomorrow? I'm like, I was like, not only you're not working, but you got 4 other collaborative team members goofing off fishing on a Monday morning at 8:00. Yeah, we've been at it since 5 a.m., man. It's awesome. And I'm like, God dang it. I'm like, okay.
That's taking the power back right there.
Oh, right. I was just like, and I sat down and I'm like, well, that's what we created. And they're enjoying it.
Because the sky won't fall, right? We all get to be who we are. Like you get to be that hard driver that motivates and gets things done and has that attitude. But there's so much balance with having everybody being themselves inside of the collaborative. It's remarkable.
God. It's so chill. And he was like, Scott, don't worry, man. We got it. Well, they're good. We're good. It's all good. I got it.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
Nice reminder.
Yeah, it was a good reminder.
I do think looking into the future that this, if you look at history, right, there's a lot of swinging back and forth to the extremes. So, we're definitely at like a corporate extreme. And then you have the entrepreneurial side, which is also an extreme that, so many people fail at that and it can ruin like it's terrible if you don't do it right, which most people don't. And then we kind of swung back again, back and forth. And I really feel like Level and other entities that are out there or emerging and are going to emerge in the next 5 to 10 years, or maybe not even, are going to be following this kind of hybrid middle balanced model and ecosystem that's just so sustainable. And it can be small, it can be big, like it scales really nicely. Yeah. So what do you guys think about the future and this model taking hold in the industry?
Well, we've exposed ourselves to a number of influencers in business and entrepreneurs, and we do it deliberately to learn from other people. We're, regenerative thinking, regenerative corporate structures, the adaptiveness of it. And I would say that in some ways it's really unique, but in some ways it's just flat ass the future. There's just so much not working. I don't know if you interact with some of big corporate stuff, but isn't it getting miserable to get things done? I mean, I don't know if it's your insurance company or it's your grocery store or the banking system, for God's sake. All of these things, it's just miserable interaction.
It ties back to that leadership, that mentorship that everybody's seeking. If you don't have purpose and you're not evolving as a person, you're not going to have heart in what you're doing, no matter what it is. And I think when I interact with people still in corporate America, that's what they talk about. They're like, the communication is just dissipated. And to me, that's passion. That's trying to just be passive as you can to just get through the day. And that is not what we want anyone having to do.
No. So this defragmentation, Miles, under an organized system, and I wouldn't even say, I'm not going to define the systems, but so the thought that you still need the power of a larger organization, but it can be disseminated into free thinking services, I think is the future for a lot of things. And I don't, the question is, are those larger systems in a greed model, or are they in a public benefit or nonprofit model? And which one are those actually going to move forward? So it's really going to be interesting to me. And I think it's actually going to gain in numbers and popularity is like, wait a minute, a public benefit with a public mission or a nonprofit, but let the people that are in those smaller spaces be the profit takers. What happens if they can make their profit, but the organization and the structures don't have to, versus just the other one, which is really, really thriving, is the rich are getting richer because they own these large structures, or their hedge funds and these things. These venture capitalists are creating these monsters. They're making the profit, but the people in the systems aren't. And so I think it's the future, to be honest with you. I think it's going to start competing with those big greed models.
I agree.
It has to. It has to.
It has to. It gets pretty ugly, yeah.
Yeah. I'd love to tell a little story about that. Like just a quick one that I heard the other day that I think it speaks to everything we're saying is I was asking my CPA about his experience with partnerships. People that started businesses together as partnerships. And CPAs always have this nightmare, opinion on that. They're like, figure out a different way to design your business. Don't do a partnership. But he told me this interesting story about the only partnership he had ever experienced that worked without a problem. And it was a group of these lawyers that all went to law school together, but all had different disciplines. And what they decided to do was they got together on an equal basis, much like a collaborative. But what they said was the money gets put in the middle, and no matter who ebb and flows with business, it gets distributed. If anybody asks for something and it fits, it's unanimous. You get it. You need an extra legal secretary. You need a new associate. You get it. And they ran it for 30 years, never had a problem till they all retired. And some of them passed it down to their kids. But that's a collaborative. That's an equal understanding as you go in of what you're going to get out. And so you participate how you feel is what you're free to do. And I just thought that was so remarkable.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting, though? They were that collaborative thinking was a young mind in college. And I think that as we mature, we lose that creativity and we lose that trust with each other. And I think a young mind's unique. And that's super interesting to me, that young mind of trust and we're in it together is where that started, and it never stopped because their minds were committed as they were young. And from that, I just had a realization, from that young mind, can we create these cultures? And that's the heart of the company. That's what we're talking about, right, at Level. And just keep that young, youthful, it's not just about money idea. It's about doing things together. And I just realized something, that the founding fathers of this country were not old guys. They were in their 20s. The founding fathers of the United States were in their 20s. That was an idealistic writing that only a young person could write.
Right, because they're not tarnished yet.
They're
full of hope.
It's so interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a power play. You get older, you start working on power plays, but
right,
you're not playing in the sandbox.
18, 20, 21, 25, 33, 40, 41, 44.
Can you imagine the founding fathers? That's how old they were.
Yeah.
I thought about that.
That document can only be written by youth.
We could do a whole episode on that, talking about how your brain chemistry works and how much vigor and passion you have to make sure that you set everything up, especially when you have a band of friends with you.
Oh my God. So that's what Level is.
Yeah.
It's older folks with knowledge saying, we're going to create this and we're going to let the youth rock.
Right.
That's what we did.
Yeah. We're only going to lift you up.
Yeah.
We want this together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Andrew, if you could just share what your role is for context, because we kind of like didn't really set that up, but we just got right into it and talked about a lot of stuff. What is your role exactly with Level? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. What are you doing?
Such a complicated question. I mean, I don't like to just use a title to describe anything. I would say my personal goals would be the best way to describe it. So my personal goal with Level is to, number one, connect on a really deep level. And I just use Level twice, which happens all the time. But
yeah, right. Nice word, right?
Yeah, it's a great word. It's powerful. My first passion with Level is to connect meaningfully with the engineers and find out what they're driving towards in their own personal lives. That's a huge part to me, helping them get their thought processes together to see if they can make that leap, or even if they make the decision that, no, I fit better in this firm environment, that's okay too. But helping them actually think about it in a more, robust manner. And the other side, I'd say my biggest personal goal with Level is to use my experience, continue to grow my own personal experience, and find the pockets that help us deliver on all the things that we're trying to deliver on. This is a disruptive company that's invented this in the space. So we're constantly facing, how do we showcase this, but also how do we feel real? And how do we make sure that our systems in the background are making our entrepreneurs thrive and our designers thrive? And so anywhere inside of this organization that I connect to that purpose, that's where my drive is.
Yeah. I would just reflect on your ability to, you're an incredible people person. That doesn't do it justice, but you just understand people really well. And you're great at communicating. You're always interacting with people. And you're pretty much always, at least right now, the first point of contact for someone who is interested in joining the collaborative.
It's my favorite thing, to connect with people. You've seen this a lot, me talking about human to human connection, believing and helping individuals be what they want to be, not what we think they should be. It's so powerful. And like we talked about, the money comes. We don't have to worry about that. It comes if we do what we're driven to do. So I appreciate the compliment. It's the biggest part of my life, is connecting with people and hearing their stories and learning. I'm a big observer when it comes to life. So
love it.
And it's interesting for Miles, if you think about it, what a strange scenario that the spirit of this Level company is that we actually don't define a lot of roles. That's insanity from a corporate top-down military structure. That's insanity. I mean, that just speaks to we actually, walk the talk here.
Right.
That it's a regenerative structure, and that's who we are to the core.
100%. So if you're listening and this conversation at all resonates, then reach out and have a conversation with Andrew.
I would love to speak to anyone who's interested.
It's the future, guys. It's the future. Yeah.
It's always exciting to hop on.
We should definitely do this again with you, Andrew, in the near future, because you're always learning from the front lines, if you will, the people out there who are actually currently in firms or currently in limbo looking for new opportunities. I think doing this soon and hearing any new insights would be great.
Yeah, love to. Thank you all.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. If you found value in this episode, support us by sharing it with someone or leaving a review. In upcoming episodes, we'll discuss the realities of the industry today and what the future may look like. It's our belief that positive changes for architects and engineers is not the obligation of the industry, but rather a choice you make to reimagine how we work together. We invite you to join us in creating a world in which design professionals thrive. Learn about our mission and get involved by following us wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribing to our newsletter at leveldesignpartners.com.